Welcome back to Everything My Parents Never Taught Me. I am Julie Wadsworth, and this is my channel. So, I want to start this session off by saying that I am probably at least partially a product of my American upbringing environment. And what I mean by that in particular is that I do believe that I am an individual and that we are all individuals, and that our existence on this plane of reality is for a number of things, but really it's to self actualize and to come to find out and recall that we are God incarnate. And what I mean by that is we are all a collective consciousness together, but none of us are separate from that. And so a lot of my views and insights come from this particular vantage point. And so when I get into the story about OnlyFans, about um, people's perception of exploitation, about how we use shame and fear to try to get behavioral changes and adaptations out of people. Please know that it comes from the space of believing in free will, believing in autonomy, and believing that so much of the work is remembering that we have free will and autonomy, and that a lot of times there is no victim perpetrator. Now, there definitely are cases where there are victims and perpetrators, but I think that we often put ourselves in the victim's mindset. And oftentimes we can accidentally end up in more of a predatory space if we hang on to that for too long. So I like to work to eliminate those mindsets in myself and others as often as I can. And I'm a work in progress. I have a lot of storylines that I myself need to work through. Today, I'm choosing to come on camera because I had a fight on Facebook in the comment section. I wouldn't actually say it was a fight, right? I wasn't like angry and upset. I like there was a tinge of injustice, so I guess there was a little bit of anger attached to that because anger is a just emotion, and often it, not always, but often it is triggered by a sense of injustice. So there was a story on my Facebook feed about an OnlyFans creator. She's very young and she's the most profitable OnlyFans creator. Now, I have a variety of my own personal opinions on sex or sexual work, and I'll kind of leave those to the sideline now because they're not necessarily relevant to this line of thinking. So of course, inevitably you're going to get people who are like, yeah, go you, woo, men and women. And I was actually really honestly impressed with how many men were like, go, girl, go get your bag. I like, for me, that indicates that we are absolutely in a culture shift where we're finding more equity. And again, my opinion of sex work or sexual work on the side. I was impressed with seeing how many men who were at least in the comment section approaching the subject matter respectfully. Now, of course, there's going to be your garden variety of folks who are, vehemently in disagreement with it. And I can get the whys, right? Some people attribute it to the breakdown of relationships and healthy relationships. But I happen to believe that the world is more on a continuum and that two things can exist at the same time in a space. I do believe that we're meant for pairing and for partnering, but I believe that there are a variety of different ways that that works in this world. And to a degree, a lot of it's just none of my business. If it's truly not hurting anyone deliberately with intent, we're not taking advantage of children. We're not, sneaking around, lying to people. I'm just sort of neutral on those things because I can get really upset about things and then ruin my own day if I wanted to, but why? So, of course, like, again, you're getting the people who are saying she's exploiting people. And my argument for this is there's a paywall, generally speaking. You're going to have to actually intentionally navigate to a website where you know that women are, mostly women, are in this space to provide a service, a fantasy, to be something that is both unattainable and yet just attainable enough. And there's a risk at play here, right? We take a risk or a gamble by going into such spaces, but there is choice. There is choice on her behalf or his behalf, whoever is on the platform. Many, many choices. many, many thousands of choices throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the month, throughout the interactions. Choice, choice, choice. There is choice, is my point. And him or whoever approaching the website or the platform deciding to getting the thought in their head that this is an idea, whether it's through advertising, which may be prompted, or heard about it, been on the site before, whatever. I have a thought in my head and I'm choosing to act on it. And I'm choosing to click through things like paywalls or click through content, subscribe, move through the feed. There are, again, 1,000 choices in this process. I think that so often we as people, I won't even say our culture or society, this is prevalent throughout humankind. We look to incite fear, which is a virus. We look to spread a virus of fear to people. And shame, which lives hand in hand with fear. It's kind of its perpetrator, right? It's like if you do this, and then fear is incited, right? Um, there's so much. She's exploiting herself. She's exploiting others. And don't mistake me. I'm sure we know that there are people who are not 18 years old or who are not of consenting mindset who find these spaces, right? The fact of the matter is these spaces exist. Now it's online, it's on a platform, but these spaces have existed across space and time as long as people have also. Okay. So the likelihood of these things just going away, exceptionally unlikely. There's clearly a demand for that supply. Okay. So let's just handle that fact, whether or not we like it. Let's just accept the reality of that fact. Okay. So we're there. Now, this woman may, in a year or two or five or however many or never, get off this platform, have a stack of money, and may never look back. Shame is a choice. We don't realize it because it's so often hoisted on us, but shame is a choice. To feel shame for our decisions when we know very well that we had many points of logic to get to a point that we are at, any point. I don't care if it's OnlyFans. I don't care if you use substance and struggled with that. It was often probably shame that kept you in a cycle like that and fear. Because if you were fearless and you didn't have shame about your substance, but you were maybe physically addicted, then you would just say, I need help. I don't want to be addicted to this anymore. Or fear that if I come off of the substance, maybe it's alcohol, then I can't be the life of the party anymore. Shame that if you tell somebody that they're going to look at you differently, treat you differently, and yet we use it to get people to do behavioral changes. And we miss the whole heart of the issue. Most of the things that we make into commodities are quote unquote sinful, right? Like we live in excess a lot of the time, especially as people in the United States. We can overeat often, we can overpurchase, we buy houses bigger than what we need, we buy cars bigger than what we need or more expensive than what we need. Like we do this consistently enough in our culture, and all of us are guilty of it to some degree. But what's happening in this situation where people are condemning her is they're externalizing their own perceived shortcomings so that they can feel at least momentarily better about their lives, their choices, their own both free will and lack of knowing that they have free will and that everybody has free will. We just have to awaken to it, right? And again, not everybody's in that awakened state. It's part of the journey of life. My whole point with this is that, again, fear is a virus. There's this concept of junk DNA. I don't believe that it's a term. I don't think there's any real connotation around it, but it does kind of seem to read like we don't need it, nobody cares about it, it's unnecessary, but it's more that it's not been activated. And there's also this concept of bacterial DNA, which each of us contains up to 25% bacterial DNA. And my theory, my thoughts on this are that DNA is actually in a, its bacteria is fear and it's shame. Um, it's what is preventing it from activating, from turning on, from reaching its full potential. It is in a state of fear because the world replicates every internal process that we have, replicates into the world, and the world replicates back into us, right? So, my point is if you really want a fundamental behavioral change, if you want to encourage or incite that in another human being, the best way to go about it is to look them in the face and see their humanity and call out every single positive thing about that human being that you can see. Call out their beauty, their strength, their intelligence, their specialties, their niches, their desires, the way they made so and so laugh at that party with that joke and just hit it out of left field and everybody was. Remind them of the best parts of themselves. Remind them of that, and you will see the behavioral change. When we shame someone or make them afraid to change in order to get them to change, then again, we don't get to the heart of the issue. We might see a surface behavioral change, but we are not addressing root cause for why someone got into that position to begin with. Shame will only continue to allow people or to encourage people to pull back from people in society into themselves and to handle it alone and to have to think of ways to hide those bits and pieces that clearly can't be loved and that only bring about those awful feelings of shame and hopelessness and like I'll never be able to fit in and I how can I ever have a sense of community, how can I ever have family, a husband, a wife, children who love me and supported, right? Because we all want to be loved and supported in this world. That vision looks different from person to person, but we all want to be loved and supported. Shame is not the way. Fear is not the way. And I will absolutely combat. And I hesitate to use the word because it feels like combat feels like a high energy word, like I'm exerting a lot of energy. I will stand firm. I'll say it that way. I will stand firm. You're not going to knock me over with threats of fear and shame, not for myself and not for other people. And I want to encourage other people to consider a mindset shift in the same direction if you haven't already. If you have any tips or tricks for how you have been able to slowly or quickly reduce shame and fear in your life, please, I would love to hear or read about those tips and tricks in the comment section. Please share for others to read as well. Thanks. Take care. Until next time.